So thank you all for coming to this webinar today. Let's see, I want to make sure that, there we go, okay, it is recording me, okay. And the topic of today's webinar is how to improve your church website's search engine optimization. This is part of our free webinar series, something new that we have started doing this year. And we're very thankful for the response that we've received from individuals such as yourself, who are laboring in various capacities, either as pastors of local churches or volunteers. It's really been a privilege to be able to do these webinars over the past several months, and we plan to continue to do more in the future. So here's what we're going to look at today. We'll spend a few minutes, since there may be some of you that are new to our organization, what we do, how we do it, and why. Spend a few minutes on that, and then deal with kind of trying to demystify search engine optimization. It's one of those terms that, for better or for worse, people people have a lot of different impressions or perceptions of what it is. It's almost too broad of a category to be useful in some ways, but try to demystify the concept and get down to, I think this is probably the part that y'all are most interested in, is what are the most important ranking factors. And even though, of course, you know, we don't know exactly the algorithms that search engines use, there's actually, I think, quite a bit that we do know. And although you can't 100% control what search engines do, there's definitely there are ways that they can be influenced. So there are knobs and levers that can be turned to improve the visibility of your local church and search engines. So we are going to get to that. All right, so let's go ahead and get started. So we are a team of people. You can see 4 of us here. We actually just hired a 5th member of our team to work with us part-time. His name is Taylor. He's not pictured here, but Andrew Gerber is here on the left. He is our church website specialist. He has been working with us on a part-time basis since last November 2018. He is in the midst of his seminary studies, training to be a pastor, and as he's been in that, he's been working to set up some new church websites, as well as provide excellent support for our existing customers. Here's a photo of myself, Daniel. My primary role is to oversee kind of project management for setting up new sites. I'm also wear many other hats as well. Jace Bauer is a relatively new member of our team, but if you got the email notifying you of this webinar, that is thanks to Jace. He lives in Stanton, Virginia, and he's a talented writer, and we're glad that he is part of our team. And then Doug Voss, my father, he is the founder, president, and director of our, he also wears many hats, but one of the main things he focuses on is managing our IT infrastructure, providing ongoing support, managing our help desk tickets, making sure we're responding to you all in a timely manner, and brings a wealth of experience working with Fortune 500 companies that he can now apply to serving you all as well. What do we do? Basically 3 things. Training, equipping, and consulting. This webinar is an example of that. I started out my career from 2004 to 2008 as a high school teacher at a classical Christian school. And I try to carry that emphasis on training, education, into what we do here at Five More Talents. If you read the website called theaquilareport.com, then you may have seen one of our ads that calls us a web media team with the heart of a teacher. And that's what we try to do. We try to have the hearts of teachers and to train and equip you, because you can, let's face it, you can have great technology, you can have amazing tools that are installed on your website, but if you don't know how to use them, then they don't really do anyone any good. We also provide website development services, of course, designing new websites, adding additional functionality to websites, redesigning websites. That's part of what we do every week. And then in many ways, the foundational piece of this is managed WordPress hosting. So providing you with a stable platform so that you can focus on managing the content of your website. Now we do this with an emphasis on people, processes, and technology. So we're obviously we work with a lot of technology, and we try to stay on the cutting edge of technology, similar to how Martin Luther in the time of the Protestant Reformation was able to harness the power of the printing press and kind of understand some of the dynamics of that. One of the things that Luther did, you may have heard, is rather than write lengthy treatises, although I'm sure he would have been capable of writing, a 1,000-page treatise if he put his mind to it. Certainly we know he translated the Bible into German, so he could be very wordy and certainly had a way with words. But one of the things that Luther did was he was very shrewd in understanding some of the peculiarities of the printing press technology of the time. One of the things he discovered, there's a book that was written about this called Brand Luther. One of the things he discovered is that if you, because of how the things were printed, you could, if he wrote shorter things, but basically booklets, then they could be printed in a couple of days. And so he discovered that ideas, that gospel truth, that the ideas of the Protestant Reformation, justification by faith alone, critiquing some of the extra biblical ideas of Roman Catholicism of the time, that by putting those together in booklets, those were able to be printed more quickly. And so in that way, he was able to harness the technology of his time to help spread the ideas of the Protestant Reformation and get people to go back to the Bible and to rediscover in a fresh way the gospel of Jesus Christ. So certainly a lot of what we do is technology, but we want to use technology to serve people, okay? So we always think about not just technology, not just what's the latest and greatest technology, but okay, how do we use it? So developing processes that people can use to use the technology to serve people. And so that relates to the third part of this, which is developing people. We want to equip you. We want to train you. We want to do things like provide webinars. We want to provide educational content that helps you use the technology that's out there to get the results that you're looking for. So what are those results? Well, you may have seen us talk about these two sentences recently. This is something we've introduced this year because I believe it kind of captures pretty well what local churches are are called to do, and that's to welcome newcomers and equip the saints. Of course, that phrase, equip the saints, resonates with Ephesians 4, I believe, where it talks about equipping the saints for the work of ministry. Welcoming newcomers, that refers back to Romans 15, talks about welcome others as Christ has welcomed you. That principle of hospitality. Elders in the church are expected to be hospitable, to welcome strangers, and to lead God's people in doing that. So that is the mission that these two things are integral to the mission that the Lord has entrusted to local churches, to welcome newcomers and to equip the saints. And so what we're trying to do is to provide technology, processes, and training that can help you in your mission to welcome newcomers and to equip the saints in your local church for the work of ministry. And this is really a passion of mine. Here you can see myself and my wife Rebecca and our three kids, Patrick, Aaron, and Cameron. We're standing in the fellowship area of the our new church building, which we're so thankful for. And it's really just been such a privilege. As some of you know, the first church website I built was for basically being drafted into service by some of the elders at my local church, Christ the King Presbyterian Church here in Roanoke, and basically saying, hey, we think you'd be good at this. And I discovered it was something that I really enjoyed, helping the church in this way, helping them use communication technology effectively. And it's just so exciting to see how God has been at work in our local church. And it really is such a privilege to, as you all know, to be involved in the work of the local church. So it's something that I've personally been very encouraged by and blessed by, and my family has been. And it really is a privilege to be able to work with folks such as yourself who are involved in local churches and helping local churches. So that's just on a personal note why I enjoy doing what I do. So let's get to the meat of today's webinar. And this is talking about search engine optimization. So let me start with an example. So this is an example of one of the church websites that we built and that we support that looks to be experiencing some really good results as far as search engine optimization. I will say this: I don't believe that I can take a whole lot of credit, that we can take a whole lot of credit for the good search result for this church in this case. However, I did think in looking at kind of the search rankings of various churches that we work with, I did think that this was an interesting example of what I believe that this would be a good goal, I think, for a local church to aspire to. So let's say that someone is doing a search for, just a church in, whatever the name of your city or town is. So church in Lake Susie, Florida. And how cool that if someone types that in, or maybe if they live in Lake Susie, Florida, and they say a church near me, then this is likely what's going to show up for them. Grace Presbyterian Church, and it has a picture from their homepage. So this is an example of a church that has a really good search engine visibility for this particular keyword, church in Lake Susie, Florida. And here's an example of what their homepage looks like. You know, they're just a very ordinary church in Florida, but they, you know, there's a lot of things they're doing really well with their website. So that's an example, I think, of what just an ordinary local church can aspire to, is if someone's doing it, looking for a church in your locality, having a top search result. Okay, so question is, how do you get there? By the way, here's a little comment from David Stewart, pastor there, talking about his experience with working with our team. So you can pursue getting a higher search ranking through the process of search engine optimization. And Wikipedia actually has a pretty decent definition of what search engine optimization is. They talk about how that it's a process. I think it's a really important word to keep in mind. It is a process. It is not something that provides instantaneous results by any means. And then secondly, it refers to the improvement of unpaid results rather than buying an ad, all right? If you look at Google's business model, or Bing's business model, or Facebook's business model, the primary source of their revenue is from ads, people buying ads which are displayed on their website. But what we're talking about with search engine optimization is, how do you improve the unpaid results? How do you get your website to appear at the top of the list when people are searching for keywords that match what your website is about? Here's an example of a search engine result page. So this is kind of a industry, or a term you'll see used as a search engine result page. So I did a little search for churches near me, and what you'll see is that when you're searching for local things in Google, I didn't look at Bing, but I imagine it would be something similar. When you're searching for something that is, you know, it's location specific, it's dealing with a local organization, and Google is usually going to show you a map first, like this. I'll show you some points on the map, and then it'll call out those different churches, those different organizations on the map. And then below that, I don't have it shown in this picture, it'll show you some just some regular search results with the title and a little snippet and a link to that page. So the question is, how do you get on a map like this? How do you get your church to show up like that? Well, there's a process. Again, SEO is a process. There's certainly lots of different ways you could break it down. It's more of a marathon. It's not a sprint. There's no instantaneous results that anyone can get for you, and if they do, then they're probably lying. So this is an example of a process. First, you want to have some criteria, which I'll be sharing some with you toward the end of the webinar today. Evaluate what you're currently doing based on known search engine optimization factors, and compare what you're doing to what you should be doing. Implement those things. Then you need to monitor your rankings. So you want to look at, okay, what do people see when they do a search for church near me? What did they see when they search for Reformed church in Carlsbad, California? What do they see when they search for Presbyterian church in Livonia, Michigan? Okay, so that's part of monitoring your rankings. And then continually optimize your pages. Okay, what does that mean? There's a lot that we can get into what exactly it means to optimize your pages, and then analyze the results. And you sort of repeat that process. So basically, that's what the process looks like, is you're coming up with a list of known best practices, evaluating your site against those, and then analyzing the results, seeing how you did, and repeating the process. How do search engines work? They basically send out computer programs called spiders, or they're robots. They crawl your pages, and put them in their database. They look for specific things on your pages. They look at the website code in a certain way. The technology is now advanced that in many cases, they're able to gather data about how long people spend on the page, how quickly do pages load, that kind of things. And they're kind of gathering all that information. They build it in a database, and then when you do a search on Google.com or Bing or whatever, then they spit out the results that are relevant. And that word relevant is very important, right? They're trying to give you, that's kind of from the search engine's perspective, that's what they're always trying to give you as the searcher, is what are the most relevant results to what you're searching for. And the more that they can do that, then the better that they're accomplishing their mission. Now, of course, at this point, for better or for worse, Google is the main search engine that just about everyone seems to use. Now, I'm sure many of you can remember back in 1993 or whatever, there were other search engines like Alta Vista and Lycos and Yahoo people would use a lot. What sets Google apart? Well, back in 1996, it was actually called Backrub. The reason for that is that one of the things they did is they came up with an algorithm, a computer program that was able to try to calculate how good of a website it is. And the main thing they looked at was the quality of links to your website, the quality and the quantity of links to your website from other websites. Similar idea to what, if you think about it, if you've done any academic work, right? You want to, you can sort of tell kind of and evaluate how important of a source it is if you find that a lot of people are relying on that source and citing that source, right? If you're writing a paper on the doctrine of sanctification and you find that a lot of people are citing J.C. Ryle and, I don't know, Herman Bavinck or something like that, then that's an indication that that's an important thinker, an important work with regard to that particular topic. So in the beginning, Google was called Backrub because it looked at backlinks, links from other sites back to your website. So that's a big, and that's actually, as we get into this a little bit more, that's going to be, you can see that's going to play an important role. All right, so let's get into some of the nitty-gritty. So in order to have a high search ranking, these are I think this is a good way to think about what your website needs to do. So let's start at the bottom. This is from a great website called moz.com, which they're one of a handful of websites that provides really sensible information about search engine optimization. So the first one is crawl accessibility. All right, is your website indexed by Google? And I remember one of the first websites that I developed. It was for a church here in Roanoke, not my home church, a different one, and we developed the website. We poured a lot of blood, sweat, and tears into the design. We got it launched, and then about a week later, a pastor called me up and said, "Hey, I'm searching for our site on Google, and it's not showing up at all." And I looked into it. It turns out that I had inadvertently left a setting on that basically was telling the spiders, the robots that were trying to index the site, saying don't index the site. So once I had fixed that problem and changed that setting, then finally Google started indexing that site. Okay, next thing is compelling content. This truly is, once we're sure that your website is indeed indexed and can be indexed, the foundation is compelling content that answers the searcher's query. If you don't have compelling content, then you're really missing out on the foundation. So you have to think about if you're hoping for people to find information about your local church, you're searching for a church in your community, how great is your content? Is the content on your site? Do you have sermon audio recordings on your site? Do you have pages on your site that people will spend time reading, spend time engaging with the content? Is it interesting? Is it informative? If you don't have the compelling content, if it's not accurate, then people are not going to engage with it. Also, people aren't going to link to it. People aren't going to share it. And those are, if you think about going back to the original name of Google, backrub, it's talking about backlinks to your site, other people linking to your site, people referring to your site from Facebook, people referring to your site from other websites. If you don't have compelling content, then you're missing out on the foundation. Now, the next row in this is keyword optimized. So this is what I sometimes call on-page optimization. So let's say that the keyword you're trying to optimize for is Reformed Church in, I don't know, Phoenix, Arizona. Then it's important that you have a page on your site that that puts those keywords in the code in such a way, in the HTML code, in such a way that it is properly highlighting them for the search engine. So once you've decided on what keyword you want your website to rank for, you do need to pay attention to the HTML code that you're using, because that does make a difference. Okay, next is great user experience. This is something that we've done a lot of work on with the church websites that we've built and we've support. Fast loading speed. one of the things that Google has done in the past few years is they've basically given people credit for using HTTPS, the secure protocol. And one of the reasons for that is not just that it's secure, but also that HTTPS actually, if I understand it correctly, runs faster than the HTTP because there's a different protocol that can be used. This also says compelling UI on any device. So Google also has a factor for whether your website is mobile friendly. And if your website is not mobile friendly and someone is searching for your site, your organization, your church on Google, then if your website is not mobile friendly, then it will tend to be displayed lower. These last ones, share-worthy content. This is kind of going a different facet of compelling content. Is it content that makes sense for people to share on social media, for people to share on their blogs, that kind of thing. And then title, URL, and description. This refers to what does the snippet look like on the search engine result page. When people do see the reference to your site, what does the headline say? What does the little 2-line description say? What does the URL say? Are they clearly relevant? If someone's searching for Reformed church in whatever your city is, Presbyterian church in whatever your city is, but the title says something else, then maybe that won't be as relevant. And then this last thing is this thing called Schema Markup. So there's some additional bits of code for things like events, for calendar events, for locations, and so forth that can make your search result more competitive. I realize this might seem a little bit like drinking from a fire hose, but this is a good way to think about some of the key elements of having a competitive search ranking and what's more foundational and less foundational. All right, now, if you fell asleep during that last part, now's the time to wake up. What are the most important ranking factors? And we're looking at specifically what are the factors for a local church. These would also apply to a local business, any kind of local organization, something that's going to show up on a map. What are the most important ranking factors? All right, and this is from an excellent study that, again, is at moz.com. Local search ranking factors. I believe this was conducted in 2018. And I believe what they did, you'd have to read about the methodology, but I believe what they did is they they surveyed a lot of experts about what those experts had found were the most important factors. And this is what they said. So let's break these things down. And you can look at it and find a whole bunch more and a lot more details at this link. And I will send out a link to these slides after the webinar. So first is local pack finder factors. So we're talking, let me go back to that, the local pack is just this section on a Google search result page that shows a map and then shows some results below that map. And then the other types of search results look like, look like this at the bottom here, where you see it says Grace Lake Susie, a PCA church in Lake Susie, Florida. So that's a non-map result. All right, so local pack is just, think about that part of a Google search result page that talks about, that shows the map. And then this local organic factors, this column is talking about the search results that are displayed below the map. All right, so let's talk about what are the main factors, most important factors in, in displaying in the map and in the listings below the map. The first one is proximity of address to the point of search. Proximity of address to the point of search. Searcher, business, distance. So that search that I conducted, churches near me, but it's interesting, this actually showed me that when I just said churches near me, Google looked at the location of my office, this co-working space where I'm working right now, and it showed me the churches, somehow looked up my IP address or something like that, and it showed me the results that that are near where I work. So if I were to conduct this search at home, then I think it would show me a different list. All right, the second one is physical address and city of search. So if someone is searching for church in Lake Susie, Florida, then Google's going to try to show you something, it's going to show you other items that are in Lake Susie, Florida. Or if it's in Asheville, North Carolina, it's going to try to show you, when you're searching for churches in Asheville, North Carolina, then it's going to show you those. Now, these next three are, let me try to demystify these. Proper GMB category associations, product service keyword and GMB business title, location keyword and GMB business title. GMB stands for Google My Business. Google My Business is basically something that you can register. If you're a business owner, you can sign up for that. As a pastor at a local church or in the position of authority at a local church, you can sign up, you can register, you can claim your business listing. That's what it is. Google My Business is the business listing that Google gives you. And I'll just go ahead and throw that out there, is that if there's only one thing that you do, this really gives you a really good return on your investment of time, is to claim your Google My Business listing and to fill it out as completely as possible. That's what people have found, is that claiming that Google My Business listing and claim it for your church has a big impact on the search results. These last two, number 6, quality authority of inbound links to domain. So this gets back to, again, why Google was originally called Backrub. It was called that because of that being a kind of a dorky way to talk about how Google's technology measures links back to your website. All right, so if you have lots of other websites, and they're quality websites linking back to your domain name, then that's going to help you. And again, this number 7 also refers to categorization within Google My Business. So those are the top 7 map local pack, the map listings that display on a Google search result page. Let's look at the organic factors. So a little bit different. This talks about the results that display below the map. So you can see number 1 here is the quality and authority of inbound links to the domain. Do you have multiple other quality websites, authoritative websites linking to your website? That's what number 2 relates to. Number 3, links from other websites to yours. Number 4, topical keyword relevance. So basically all that means is that your your church website should be about your church, if I understand that correctly. Number 5, don't miss this. Is your website mobile friendly and responsive? Responsive in this case means, does the design, the graphic design, adapt and respond to different screen sizes? Does it still look good, and is it easy to use whether you view it on your computer or on your smartphone or whatever? And Google actually has a testing tool that you can use that will tell you if the website is mobile friendly. This is definitely something that is pretty easy to fix and to assess. Same as Google My Business. You either have a Google My Business listing or you don't. If you don't, go get one. It won't take that long, and people have found that it produces really good results. And then the number 6 and 7 really refer to keywords. So geographic, city, neighborhood, keyword relevance of domain content. So in this case, it would be, does the website talk about your community? Does it list the name of your community? That kind of thing. If it doesn't really list a whole lot about, it doesn't mention that, Lake Susie, Florida, or Stanton, Virginia, or Modesto, California, or whatever it is, and that's going to make a difference. And then same here is, what are the links to the website? Links from other websites to yours, what did they say? Did they just say, is it just the word church that's linked, or is it actually saying like church in Modesto, California, or what does that actual link text say? All right, so again, there's a lot of details here. You could spend a lot more time unpacking what all of those things are. But hopefully this gives you a little bit of a sense of the most important ranking factors. And just to kind of summarize this, that this Google My Business listing is really important. Where your church is located is really important. That's really more of a building committee kind of discussion. But as far as just stuff that you can do on the web, Google My Business is really important. What makes people want to link to your site? Well, that goes back to the compelling content. Are you getting as much of this stuff that is happening at your church on your website, so that the content you have lots of compelling content? That's going to tend to make people want to link to your site. And then, is your website mobile friendly and responsive? And actually connected to that is, how fast does your website load? Is it really slow and clunky, or is it really fast? Of course, that doesn't really say that here, but that is another factor that was listed here, right? Does it have a fast load speed? All right, now there is another, as we talked about, SEO is a process. It's a marathon, not a sprint. There is something else that I'm sure you've seen, is that Google also lists ads, and you can see some examples. If you were to search for Christmas candy, you might see something like this, especially around Christmas time, where you have ads displayed above the organic search results, ads displayed on the side. Probably would be different for churches, but there is this, I have heard of churches here and there that actually use pay-per-click advertising. And one of the advantages of pay-per-click advertising is that you can get exposure pretty quickly, right? You can, if you're willing to invest some money in your budget, on advertising, then you can, target the keyword of, church in whatever the name of your city is. You can get your ad displaying for that keyword. You can turn it on and you can turn it off. Just depends on whether you want to spend the money on ads. So that is another option that's out there. All right, so let's talk about some takeaways here. What are the next steps? And I will email this out to you, hopefully by no later than tomorrow. First thing is verify that your website is indexed by Google. And there's actually a simple way to do that. You can just type in site, colon, and then you type in the URL of your site. And this will tell you what, if your site is indexed, it'll show you the top results from your domain name. If not, you'll see something like 0 results, or you might just see 1 result, but you know that you have 20 pages on your site. All right, so that's how you can check that. Okay, the next thing is you want to claim your Google My Business page and fill it out as thoroughly as possible. So let's see, the way that you would do this, Grace. Okay, so what you're looking for is this link that says own this business. So you want to search for the name of your church and look for where it says own this business. And if you click on that, it will then start to take you, it'll take you through a process. It'll ask you a bunch of questions to kind of fill it out. The key is that you need to verify it. And what they're going to do is they're going to call you at your number, or in some cases send a postcard to the address of your church. And then that's how they verify whether you are authorized to edit the listing, right? But just if you haven't ever done this, do it today, do it this week. Click this own this business. It has been proven to be something that doesn't take that long, but can produce really good results. Next, make your content as compelling and share-worthy as possible. The other webinar we did today, we shared some ideas. How do you make your content compelling for visitors? How do you make it things that people want to share on social media? Anything you can do to that is going to help you in the long run. All right, next one. Assuming you're using WordPress, there's a tool called Yoast Seo, which allows you to optimize the search result snippets and how you are coding those keywords that you're using. So basically, what that means is it allows you to fine-tune what's the title that's going to display, what are the lines of the description that's going to display. That's what a tool such as Yoast Seo allows you to do. But you always got to do some fine-tuning. Next one, make sure your website is mobile-friendly and responsive and also uses HTTPS. Your website is not mobile-friendly and not using HTTPS, why not? I mean, these are things that are industry standard for websites nowadays. So those are two things that are not that hard to fix, but really need to be fixed. And then next is ensure that as much of your content as possible uses schema.org markups. There's actually a little example of this here, where they had this is, let's see what this is. I wonder if this is like a concert or something. So, oh, okay, that's something on a different website. All right. But anyway, that's an example of the kind of thing where there are WordPress plugins. There are better and worse ways to code your site, and we try to select plugins for your WordPress site that will code up your events and so forth in such a way that search engines can digest it as an event or as a location, or so on and so forth. And then let me conclude by saying this. This has really just been kind of like a fire hose introduction to search engine optimization. I would like to invite you to book a meeting with me. You can do so at danielvoss.youcanbookme. I'll send you out a link in the follow-up email to this webinar. And happy to do a one-on-one web conference with you to help you start to work on these next steps. We can talk about them in more detail. So with that, I am going to stop the recording and then open it up for questions.